let's talk about how to apply multiplying with fractions. All right, so first and foremost, I'm going to look for that question. I'm going to look for what the problem is asking me to do. I'm not going to dig through the information yet. I'm going to figure out what do I need to answer. So I'm going to look for that question mark, and I see that question mark is right here. So before that, it's asking, what fraction of the whole pan of cornbread does she buy? And then I see that there's a second question mark, so I'm going to get a second color because I have a second question to answer. And that second question is, what does she pay for the cornbread she bought? All right, so my questions in this case, I'm being asked, how much does she buy? Which might be straightforward in the problem, but I also might have to do a little bit of math. So I might need to know how much is there or how big pieces are. So how big? How much is there? Stuff like that. And then the other thing is, how much does it cost her? So if I need to know how much it costs her, I might need to know like the price per, I don't know if they go by bar or if something is being sold by the pan or price per piece. All right, but I'm going to have to go through and find those things. Those things are going to be helpful. So this is what I need to know. So let's go back through the problem and read it and see if we can find some of this information. The fifth graders want to raise money for their overnight camping trip by selling cornbread during the school chili cook-off contest. Is any of that answering how much it cost or how much she bought? No. So since it's not, and it's really just setting up the problem for us, we can just cross it out. So we can eliminate some of that fluff information. All the pans of cornbread are square. That might be important. A pan of cornbread costs $12. Well, there we go, right there. Costs $12. And it's by the pan. All right, so I have the price per pan. That's important to note. The customers can buy any fractional part of a pan of cornbread and pay that fraction of $12. So for example, they can buy half of a full pan and it costs half of $12. So now here's the thing. It is important to note that they can buy any fractional part of the pan. And then they pay that fraction. The rest of those numbers, the 12s and the halves, they're not going to help us because it's not telling us that she bought half of a pan. It's just giving us an example. So what it's saying is if she buys the full pan, it's $12. But if she buys half the pan, it's half the cost, which is $6. So a little visual sometimes can help. So we draw a little picture off to the side. That's okay. It's absolutely going to help us out. So let's go down into the information. Mrs. Farmer buys cornbread from a pan that is 1/4 full. Well, that's important to know because if it's only 1/4 full and she has to pay by the pan, if she just buys that much, she's not going to pay $12. Okay, so what it's saying is, here's your pan, and this is going to be weird, but I am going to cut off what's left. So like all this is gone. So we're only looking at this section right here. That's all that's left. All the rest is purchased or eaten. Okay, so its pan is 1/4 full, and then she buys 1/3 of the remaining cornbread. Okay, so she didn't buy 1/3 of the pan. She didn't buy this. There's not that much left. That's not what's happening. They're saying out of this right here, so out of this 1/4, she now took that and cut it into thirds. Oops, and I wanted that to be red, so it was a little bit easier to see. So we have to remember, though, by cutting that little piece into thirds, each of those isn't worth 1/3. This right here was 1/3. These pieces are much, much, much smaller. And we have to remember that rule. What I do to one, I have to do to the other, do to it all. So that entire pan, even the pieces that are gone, would be split into those thirds. So now each of these pieces, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So each of those pieces is worth 1/12. I know that's really hard to see, so we'll... Okay, because that's 1/12 of the full pan. And she only bought one of these, right? So she only bought 1/3 of those. So right there in our picture, we answered the question, what fraction of the whole pan did she buy? So she bought 1/3 of 1/4. Notice here how I said that. She bought... Sorry about that. Get my pen back. Bought 1/3 of 1/4 of the pan. And we know that of word tells us that we're going to multiply. And then if you look at the picture, that's what's happening here. That's the picture is showing us what's happening is what I should say. And we know that she bought 1/12 of the pan. Well, take a look at the math. Does that work? 1/3 times 1/4? Absolutely it works because we just multiply across the top. But now we need to know, what was the cost? What did she pay? Well, it was important to remember that any fractional part, they pay that fraction. So if she bought 1/12 of the pan, she pays 1/12 of the cost. Okay, and in this case, again, of tells us we're going to multiply. And the cost, if we go back up into our problem, that cost was $12 if she bought the full pan. But she didn't buy the full pan, she bought 1/12 of it. So we have 1/12 of $12. Okay, and if we go ahead and multiply this straight across, we get 12/12, which is equal to 1. So our answer in this case for Mrs. Farmer is that she bought 1/12 of the full pan and she paid $1 for it. All right, let's try the next one. So all of this information up here is exactly the same. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to pull all of that out. So it costs, a pan costs $12. They can buy fractional parts, pay that fraction. So let's take a look here now at our question. So we have, what fraction of the whole pan of cornbread does he buy? And then we want to know, well, it looks like, how much does he pay? What does he pay for the cornbread he bought? Oh, well, look at that. Same question. So same process here, same idea. We need to know how much of the pan was left. Okay, well, did he buy a full pan? Did he buy part of a pan? And then how much of that pan? If it was a full pan and he bought half of it, we're only going to charge him half the price. If there was half of a pan and he bought half of that half, we have to do a little bit more. All right, so let's go through and take a look. The next customer is the school principal. Not necessarily all that important, but that was very nice of him. He buys cornbread from a different pan that is larger and is 1 1/2 full. He buys the remaining 5/6. So it's 1 1/2 full, and he buys the remaining 5/6 of that cornbread pan. Okay, so what's happening here is you have a bigger pan. So instead of just being worth 1, this is worth 1 1/2. Whoops, not 1/12. 1/2. Okay, so now you take that 1 1/2 and we are going to cut it into sixths. Get another color here. So I took this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. And we're only looking at this much of it. So again, let's say that this is a full pan right here. Get my red ink back. Okay, so this is a full pan. So here's your 1, and here's your 1/2. Okay, and we're looking at 5/6 of that. Okay, so again, he has 1 1/2 of a pan, and he buys 5/6 of that 1 1/2. Write it like that. That'll be better. So he buys 5/6 of 1 1/2. So let's just go ahead and do the math. Okay, so we have 5/6 times 1 1/2. We have to remember to change this this mixed number into an improper fraction so we can multiply. Okay, we have one group of 2, which is 2, plus 1 is 3. Now I can go ahead and multiply straight across, and I get 15/12, which I know I can't leave it that way. I get 1 3/12, which if I simplify gives me 1 1/4. So the principal bought 1 1/4 pans of cornbread. So now this is what he bought. Now to figure out how much he pays, we know that it is $12 per pan. And he did $12, and the per is a multiply, but he bought 1 1/4 of a pan. So he bought not only a pan, but he bought a little bit more than that. So in this case, we know logically if he bought more than a pan, he should pay more than $12. So we're going to take that 12, and we're going to make that improper by putting it over 1. We are going to make the 1 1/4 improper. One group of 4 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Okay, 4 goes on bottom. 12 times 5 is 60. 1 times 4 is 4. And I know that 60 divided by 4 is 15. Okay, so this principal purchased 1 1/4 pans of cornbread and paid $15. You'll notice of is a really important word when we're talking about fractions. And then when we're looking at what's happening, you have to remember that you're basically, with fractions, you're taking usually small parts and cutting them into smaller pieces. So when you do that, you're going to get more pieces. They're just going to get smaller when you do that. Okay, so what you guys are going to do, you're going to go ahead, you're going to do your practice problems. Make sure that you're showing your work on the whiteboard and attaching the work underneath the problem. And then make sure that you're doing the application or the word problems on the bottom of the page. Make sure you're doing your ride, showing all your work, and turning those in.